Great. Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining. This is our third installment of CSP's 2016 informational webinar series. Today, we will be talking about, the bandwidth boom, what it means for your business, and how we can potentially help. So thank you very much for the time. Our agenda for the day, we will briefly go over a couple of logistics and introductions. I will then briefly go just what I've termed a WAN 101, a brief sort of overview of some baseline questions. But then the majority of our time will really be spent talking about what we here at CSP have termed the bandwidth boom. Why are we here? What's driving it? Who are the players that we're seeing really active in the market? What's Google doing in the market? How much bandwidth do you need, and what's the going rate of the bandwidth as well? Those are sort of some of the big areas that we're going to focus on. We will then conclude the webinar today with talking about how we at CSP can help and what are your next steps. And as Clayton mentioned, have some time at the end for question and answers as well. So first and foremost, a couple of logistics before we do dive in. One, thank you. We greatly appreciate everyone taking the time to be here with us today. I respect your time, and I want to make it as informational and beneficial to you as possible. So again, I have tried to leave plenty of time at the end for question and answer so that we can make it as valuable as possible for you. So as mentioned, everybody was muted upon entry just for the ease of this. But if you do have any questions, simply type them in via the chat window, and they will be responded to at the end of our session today. Also, from a timing perspective, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and I want to respect your time for being here. So every intention is to keep this to 30 short minutes, even, again, a little less within some time for Q&A. Thirdly, this session is being recorded, so if you do miss anything or if you have to step away for a moment, we will be posting this on our website, and you can follow up at a later date to view the recording. And as discussed, we will have time for Q&A at the end, so please feel free to ask away. So without further ado, thank you so much, and we will dive on in. Well, I know a lot of you know CSP and know who we are. I did see a couple of new people who have registered who may not be familiar with our firm. So I did want to kick off today with a very brief introduction, both of CSP and then of myself. So for CSP first, we are an award-winning managed IT services and solutions firm. We are family owned and operated. We've been around for 21 years. We're extremely proud and humbled by the success we've had and loved all the relationships that we've cultivated throughout the years. We are based in Raleigh, North Carolina, with coverage really across the majority of North Carolina, except for the far western outposts of the states, having engineers based anywhere from Charlotte, the Triad, obviously here in the Triangle region, and then Eastern North Carolina as well. We focus on three primary core businesses. One, our managed IT services, that is our primary business, but then obviously as well propping that up, our cloud services and technology solutions as well. And finally, a brief plug into why CSP. Three big things that really jump out to me. One, our approach. We really do view IT as a business enabler. It has to be. And while technology is cool, ultimately it has to solve business problems. It has to save you money, make you more efficient, make you more productive, try to align with your business goals. Also, despite being a technology firm, we truly believe that at the core, we're a customer service firm first and foremost. We have to deliver that premier customer service experience, and we talk about that every day and how we work with our partners. Our people, we are truly an end-to-end IT provider. We have a large, diverse engineering skill set, over 35 employees, so allowing us to handle anything from level 1 help desk, tier 1 help desk support to very high-end, complex design and architecture for your business. Finally, our history, again, 21 years, over 300 happy clients, countless awards and accolades, so a lot to be proud of. One shameless plug, if you do know us or do not, we are hosting an event here in a couple weeks at our office, an open house. We are terming it CSP's Tailgate Before the Tailgate. NC State opens the football season on Thursday, September 1st at 7:30. Our office is actually right around the corner, right off Trinity Road. So whether you're a State fan heading to the game, or you're aligned with one of the Blues, or a Demon Deacon or a Pirate, and you just want to celebrate the start of football season or get Labor Day going, we're going to just sort of have an open house event with some food, some drinks, some games, music, and fun out front of CSP. It's an open house. Feel free to swing by if you'd like to meet us or any of our team. And then briefly, as for me, so my name is Stephen Riddick. I am our VP of Sales and Marketing here at CSP. Actually have a liberal arts background, but then ventured into technology, which is perfect for today's discussion at Cisco Systems. Cisco is obviously a tech bellwether when it comes to connectivity. So routers and switches plays very well into our discussion today over bandwidth and WANs. I've since spent about 7 years at Cisco and now have been at CSP for about 4. And with my contact info is below. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me at the conclusion. So I wanted to start and try to be very brief, though, but we have, in looking at the titles and the people who are in attendance, a very wide range of technical acumen. So I wanted to start out with some basics. And for some of for some of you who are in IT, I know these may be seen extremely basic, so I will keep it quick. But for those of you who aren't aware, I did want to just start with what I'm terming WAN Connectivity 101. I mean, just some very, very basic terms, ideas that you need to be thinking about when you're thinking about your bandwidth in your WAN connections. So first, what's the difference between a download speed and upload speed? Extremely simple. I know everybody knows this, but just wanted to confirm. Download, how fast the data comes to you. So this is the large majority of your surfing, whether you're downloading email, whether you're watching videos on demand, whether you're watching videos, streaming live content, whatever that is, the download speed is what comes to you. So a lot of people assume download probably is more important. I would say to a certain extent, yes, but don't forget about that upload, especially in the business world. That is how fast you send the data away. So if you're sending emails, if you're uploading files into the cloud, if you're doing backups from your business into a cloud environment into another location, and then finally, if you're participating in live collaboration, so if voice over your IP connection, video conferencing, things like that, those are all critical uploads that you don't want to forget about either. Next, how are WAN speeds measured? Most common is Mbps, megabits per second. You also might hear people say, I have a 10 meg connection. That's just sort of the slang version. The next step up that you are starting to hear a little bit more about is gig speed, gigabits per second. So actually, if you reach 1,000 meg, that is equal to 1 gigabit per second. So typically, your internal networks for many, many years have been at gig speeds. A lot of people have gigabit internal speeds. If you're connecting from a computer in your office to a server in your office, that's probably going over your LAN over a gig speed. Some people still have some 100 meg connections. Some people even have 10 gig connections now, but typically that's been a gig speed. Externally, though, if you're talking to the internet, typically that has been at meg speed. And honestly, very, very small meg connections. And I wanted to bring this up briefly just as a baseline for everybody. So a T1, that was an extremely popular, and it still is extremely popular, internet connectivity connection for businesses for many, many years. That is 1.54 meg. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we start thinking about some of the speeds that we're talking about, and you'll see some of the multipliers that are now available to you. So especially if you're on a T1 connection, please give us a call. I really do believe there's a lot more that you can be doing, get a lot more bang for your buck. Used to a T1 would go for $600, $700, $800, and I think you'll see in a little bit that those are now commonplace for much, much faster connections. What is the difference between a synchronous and asynchronous connection? These are two terms you'll probably hear a lot. Synchronous, same speed, both up and down. Typically, that'll be in an advanced connection, such as a fiber connection. So you might hear of a 50 by 50 meg pipe. Obviously, same speed up and down. Asynchronous, different speeds up and down. Typically, that's going to be a coax connection. So, for example, you may hear a 50 by 5 pipe. And if you hear that term, that means you have a 50 meg download speed and a 5 meg upload speed. Is speed the only variable that matters? I will give a big emphatic no to that question. Speed really is the most common thing used when talking about your bandwidth and your internet connection, and it is a solid baseline, but it is not the only variable. Jitter, latency, SLAs are all other important factors to consider. We do not want to get too technical today, but just so you know, jitter and latency really are critical for anything that you're doing with real-time communications. With that, packet loss is paramount. So if you're doing voice over your internet traffic, a lot of real-time video conferencing, not necessarily downloading a VOD, but real-time video. Database traffic. So if you have a lot of SQL traffic that's talking to a SQL database off-site, for example, that packet loss is critical. Whereas if you're just web surfing or downloading an email or pulling a PDF out of the cloud, if every packet comes to you doesn't align exactly when it's supposed to, it doesn't matter, it catches up. But with that real-time communication, it's important that you not only have a fast speed, but you do have a quality connection. And then SLA, service level agreements, those are also critical for uptime. So that's another question to be asking. If you do require uptime and you want to be compensated appropriately, you need to look into SLAs, which not all circuits will have. And then finally, what are the current physical mediums being used? And this is fairly basic too, but I do think it's important to consider because there's been a lot of change in this area. So at least here in Raleigh, what we're seeing the most of now are coax connections. That's going to be a cable type connection similar to your TV. Typically, we'll see that it can be very, very high speeds. It might have higher jitter, higher latency, no SLAs associated with it. And then a little bit of a higher end solution is your fiber solution. That's a fiber optics cable that's using light. It can also have higher speeds, but it can also minimize jitter, latency, and provide SLAs. Really a little bit of a higher quality solution, obviously going to be more expensive as well. So why are we here? I think there are really multiple forces at play in our market right now. One, there is a lot of very strong competition. There are a lot of players in our market, and I think anytime you see the competitive forces of an open, competitive market economy, you will see the benefits from that as a consumer or business. I think also there is a little bit of healthy paranoia in the market, knowing Google Fiber is coming. I think people are trying to prepare appropriately for that. There have been some technological advancements as well. I think these companies are always improving. So those three are really on the supply side. And then the fourth is really increasing demand, whether it's mobile, whether it's video, whether it's different applications. We are just seeing demand skyrocket for bandwidth. So on that point, Cisco actually has an annual report that looks at global IP traffic, and this is the total. And I'll be honest, I don't even know what an exabyte is, except that it is a huge sum. But more important than that, if you look at even moving ahead, the continued growth in total bandwidth being consumed worldwide is still just staggering. And again, a lot of that is being derived by video. If you consider I can't remember the exact stat, but one minute YouTube is equal to something like an entire year of an average user of using email. So video, mobile, all just driving more and more bandwidth consumption out there. So fortunately, we are seeing the market respond incredibly well with higher speeds at lower costs. Just here in the past few months, I've been really shocked by the amount of bandwidth that people are being able to get for a very low cost. So briefly then, who are the largest players in our area? And there are a lot of people out there. Don't think these are the only ones. I'd say, at least from my seat here, who I'm seeing the most of would be these. And I think a little distinct from a cable side, Time Warner business class. And I do want to say that is very different than the consumer grade Time Warner. That is a separate division, obviously same entity, but don't think just because you're frustrated with Time Warner at home that you'll necessarily be frustrated with Time Warner business class. They are two separate firms. And then other providers that are coming out, what I'm terming more the legacy telco space, so your Windstreams, your AT&T, CenturyLink, Level 3, all have some very big presences in our area. So when you look at them, and again, these are very broad strokes, nothing specific, but and obviously not targeting any of the providers, but just in general, a few things to think about. If you're thinking about looking at a legacy cable, a Time Warner type solution, especially one of their coax solutions, over coax, they can deliver very, very high speed at a low cost. Are you always going to have the best connection? Is it going to have low jitter, low latency? SLAs? Probably not. But again, if you just want high speed at low cost, that's a great solution. And they also do have some solid fiber internet services. They're investing a lot in their fiber platform. Areas for improvement, again, I would say quality. As I mentioned above, if you need a high quality solution, maybe not the best. If you're looking complex, multiple site MPLS type deployments, haven't seen them be the absolute best in that environment. They can do it, but again, let's just have a conversation about it. And then from a SIP services telephony side, still improving in that realm. Again, they're not a telco, so they're making improvements, but just not quite there. If you look at the legacy telco guys, where I think the biggest positives are for them, in general, the quality, they'll typically have better SLAs. They're better and more advanced deployments. Their phone service is going to be better. Areas for improvement, still not seeing quite, just the high bandwidth at a low cost. And sometimes it can be complex if you're just looking for a single office solution that you just want a good bandwidth connection. Can be a little more complex sometimes. So what's up with Google Fiber? They are continuing to pull fiber into Raleigh. Do seem that they are starting in more residential areas and just sort of being rolled out neighborhood by neighborhood. One thing that did come out earlier this month at a national level, there was a press release and they did admit a few what they term snags. I think the higher cost and longer lead times of digging fiber than they had anticipated. So they still are saying with the metropolitan areas that they have announced Google Fiber in, they are moving forward, Raleigh being one of those. But they said they also are tweaking their direction. They're petitioning the FCC to look at new high-speed Wi-Fi technologies to try to just engulf areas with high-speed Wi-Fi as opposed to pulling fiber. So more to come on that. Again, this is all just early August where this came. But again, because they're Google, they still are driving the market. I think that's the biggest thing, is that I think just the fear of what's Google going to do is pushing a lot of other players to keep up their game, and the competitive forces at play, again, higher speeds, lower costs to combat what they think may be coming from Google. So next, how much bandwidth do I need? This is a question that we get all the time, and I know this is a frustrating answer, but honestly, it depends. It depends on your business. Are you a cloud-based business? Are all your applications residing in the cloud, or is all your servers on-premise? What are the application requirements? Do you have a lot of remote users who are trying to tie into your office? How big's your office? What are your user habits? Are they heavy video people? Are they doing a lot of stuff, or is it just sort of basic email and web surfing, excuse me? What's your propensity for risk? What's your DR, business continuity strategy? So these are all types, all ideas, questions that will go into the conversation about how much bandwidth do you really need. And again, that's going to be on a per customer, per business basis, part of having that dialogue with someone like CSP. But if you said, no, really, give me some direction. And please, please, please note, this is an extremely rough, high-level overview, but I think you are starting to see some people hone around this 2 to 3 meg per user as a baseline. And I'll say though, that does not assuming just a sort of company that's just doing basic browsing. If that's all you're doing, email browsing, and your servers are on premise, you can definitely get away with less than that. More 1 to 2 meg per user. 2 to 3, I would say, is more your average baseline current sort of business, and where they're doing some cloud technologies, maybe email in the cloud, maybe they're using a share file, they're uploading some files into the cloud, they're doing cloud-based backup, maybe a little bit more advanced users when it comes to video conferencing, things like that. And then finally on the higher end, if advanced demands, maybe more engineering firms, large CADs, a lot of things in the cloud, tons of video conferencing, high-def video conferencing, you want to bump it up from there. So that's, again, just a baseline. And then the final note, economy of scale can be recognized with larger organizations. And, we do track this. Just to let you know, here at CSP, I mean, we have 35, a little over 35 employees here in our Raleigh office, though. We actually only have about 20 to 25, I believe, with the rest being remote. And we have redundant, we have 100 meg pipe, but we track that very closely. And actually, really 50 meg is more than we need, but we're also doing a lot of more, doing some backups for customers, doing some more advanced things. So that just sort of gives you a loose baseline understanding of how we're set up here. So what's the going rate? And here's where I really would like to, for those of you who maybe have zoned off looking at emails, just to take 1 second to hone in and just see the market out there, because it really is amazing. I mean, just here in the past few weeks, I've seen a 50 by 5 coax pipe for $99 a month. I mean, it's really pretty mind-blowing to me, just compared to where we used to be. Again, used to, people would pay you know, hundreds of dollars for a T1 that's 1.54 megs. So now you're talking about a 50x or what's that, 35x multiplier on the way down for that, for your download speeds. And then even fiber connections as well. We are seeing lower and lower costs for fiber connections. And one important note before I say any of these, please note fiber pricing, a lot more goes into fiber pricing. Really, coax is sort of everywhere, and the providers can give you, that's a fairly set cost. Fiber, a lot depends on where you're located. Is there fiber already in your building? Does that carrier already have somebody in your building on it that they're just trying to now, who's paid for the build out? So all kinds of questions there. So fiber is very loose, but I mean, just to give a few examples of, these are some real-time costs that I've seen. 500 by 500 for 645, you know, just to show how it varies. So even 1200 that I saw a few months ago, I thought was a great deal. 1600 for gigabit fiber. I mean, used to you'd be paying, I mean, gigabit fiber was unheard of. 500 by 500 fiber was unheard of. You know, I mean, you would really be paying those prices for maybe a 50 meg connection, where now you're just seeing the prices come lower and lower and lower. And again, I really don't want to say that's everywhere. I don't want you to think you can do that, but still, you know, getting a 50 meg pipe maybe for that, where I saw one customer get the 500 meg pipe in that 600 range, is still a huge improvement of where it used to be. So I think the most important thing is do your research and don't just auto renew. So then the question is, how do I navigate this process? We're happy to help. We don't have direct relationships, but we do work with a telecom broker who represents all of the carriers in our region. So the beauty of this model is that if you reach out to us, we can get you in touch with this gentleman, and then he can look at Windstream, look at AT&T, look at Time Warner, look at Level 3 and see, all right, where's their fiber, who has fiber in your building, what kind of deals can they get, and really do all the legwork for you, and then be able to bring some quotes to the table for you. So then finally, what questions do I need to ask my current provider? One, whether you ask or whether you just look up your contract, always know when does your contract expire. A lot of your contracts have large opt-out fees, so you know, it could be expensive to make a shift when you're in term, but you know, make sure though that you know when it does expire so you can plan accordingly. Be careful for co-terms. Don't just sort of co-term a contract. Also be careful of auto renewals. And then ask that incumbent, you know, what options pricing do they have? You know, but don't commit. We can't get involved with the incumbent, but again, if you want to say, hey, here's what I currently have, here's what they're saying they can do, what other options do I have? That's something that we're more than happy to go look at for you. And then again, come reach out to us. We'll engage our telecom broker. We'll see what's the best deal that you can get in your area. So with that, I'm sorry, that was 25 very fast minutes. I thought I had it down to about 20 for even more time, and but did want to say, thank you so much for attending today. I do greatly appreciate your time. We are more than happy to help. Give us a call here at CSP. 919-424-2000 is our main number, and my email address is sriddick, R-I-D-D, D as in Delta, I-C-K, at cspinc.com.